So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us on our Tampa Bay group. Hope everyone's having a great day. My name is James Gress. I'm the North America Advanced DevOps Center lead out of our Tampa ATC, or Advanced Technology Center in Tampa. And we put this meeting or this group together to talk about all things DevOps. And today we're going to be talking with Omar about shifting DevOps security left, or shifting security left. Just some quick guidelines for this call. It's going to be recorded and put up on YouTube. If you don't wish to be recorded, now's your time to exit. And you can always watch it again after we post. We also ask that you stay on mute unless you're asking a question, and we do encourage questions. We also encourage video. It makes it feel like it's more socially engaging. And also at the end, we'll open it up for questions that you might have that you didn't want to ask during the call. And then you can also put in the chat window any questions, and we'll try to pick those up and get those answered as well. Snyk has graciously sent us some t-shirts to give away. And based on the crowd we have here, I think we're going to have enough. So I'm going to post my email address in the chat window. And if you want to send me a private message, let's send it to me in email. So send me a private message in my email, and I will get that turned back around to you. The thing that I'll need to know is your preferred size of t-shirt and your address. And if you can do that, I will get one out to you as soon as they come in. So having said that, Omar, you're going to be talking to us about some of Snyk's capabilities, how we can quickly get into this and start adding it to our open source projects very quickly. I have to say that I did play around with this a little bit over the last couple of weekends, and my most favorite feature had to be the automatic PR request. So hopefully we'll be talking a little bit about that as you kind of go through here. So that'll be awesome. And with that, if you want to go ahead and take it over, share your screen and get started, it'd be great.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and just start with a general introduction on me. So my name is Omar Kimbaya. I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas, and I work for Snyk as a senior solutions engineer. And this call is not meant to be like a salesy call. Like, I'm not here to do any of that. Really what I'm trying to do here is going to talk to you all about how you can use this tool for free for your current projects, for your companies, whatever it is that you want to do. It's completely free and available for you to use. And all the features that we're going to go over today, they're all going to be available for you. Snyk at its core is an open source company. We open source a lot of the technologies that we have. And so, yeah, so I just want to make sure that you guys have that opportunity to be able to use these tools and make good value for them. Now, a little bit about me. I am the founder and organizer of a meetup called the Texas Cyber Dojo. It's something that I've been doing for almost 6 years. And the purpose of it is essentially to educate and create networking opportunities for people in the San Antonio area and around it to get involved in cybersecurity. San Antonio is a very big city for cybersecurity. I'm sure you wouldn't, not a lot of people kind of recognize that or realize that, but San Antonio is really big in the security space. And so having an informal kind of group of people to get together and help other people get into the industry is a really good, helpful for us in terms of networking, as well as for people, and getting a lot more diversity into the field as well. And also fill a lot of the vacancies that are out there in terms of cybersecurity. And yeah, I'm also a Twitch streamer as well as a YouTuber, and you can follow me on Twitter at writtenbyapanda. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly, and it's basically just going to be the website for now, because I just want to talk a little bit about what Snyk is and how it's supposed to work, or just kind of work in general. So like I said before, Snyk is a open source tool. We're a developer first tool. And essentially what we're here to do is really these pieces right here. The idea is to identify vulnerabilities within your open source dependencies. Open source developers and maintainers, they are not necessarily security experts. And there's going to be bugs in their code, and there's going to be exploitable weaknesses in their code. So there has to be a way for people to be able to keep track of that. And especially because if we're looking at a massive amount of open source vulnerabilities being added into infrastructure that already has another set of vulnerabilities that IT and ops and those are the guys who are in security, they're all focusing on those. It makes more sense to scale out security if you're able to shift left, as it were, or to provide developers with that sort of information on where their vulnerabilities within their code bases or within their open source dependencies, and then tell them what to do about them. So not just in open source dependencies, but also we look at containers, we look at infrastructure as code, and we also do some SAST analysis or static analysis, security, static analysis or software. I forget what SAST stands for. Goodness gracious. I keep on trying to say it's static analysis, but it's probably like, software application security testing is probably what it is. Anyway, so that's kind of what Snyk does in sort of a nutshell. But really what's going to be most important is, well, how am I supposed to use this within my internal environment? Like, how am I supposed to use this in a project? So what I've done is I put together a project for you all to kind of show you what this looks like. It's a project that's hosted in GitHub. And what we're going to do is we're going to run scans within an IDE. We're going to get information within the IDE. And then we're also going to look at our CLI. So how you can use the CLI either on a host machine or as a part of a CI/CD build pipeline. Static application security testing. Thank you. It's so weird because I want to say software because it's SCA, software composition analysis. I don't know. This is recorded, right? So everyone knows I just made that huge mistake. And anybody who's watching this after the fact is just going to put their head in their hands and be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? This guy has no credibility whatsoever. But that's cool. All right. So then I'm also going to talk to you about using GitHub Actions. So if you are using GitHub Actions or you want to use GitHub Actions, how do we use Snyk as a part of that process? And also, how do I upload my results to Snyk in one way, as well as to GitHub Security another way? So a lot of different ways that we can work with this. So let's start at the IDE. The IDE I'm going to be using is WebStorm. So let me go ahead and pull that up for y'all. Okay, so give me some thumbs up or anything within the chat to let me know that you're able to see this.
I can see it.
Okay. Yeah. Is it too small? Do you need me to make it bigger or anything like that?
I got a 24-inch and it looks pretty good for me. Okay.
All right. So this is our project here. I'm just opening the README. It's just it's an intentionally vulnerable demonstration app that we have at Snyk. It's essentially just based on the to-do MVC, and we just call it Goof. And it's a JavaScript node project, and I'm running this in WebStorm. So it's an IntelliJ, or rather, it's a JetBrains product. So Snyk, we have integrations with JetBrains IDEs as well as VS Code and Eclipse. And so if you want to have a similar experience in those different IDEs, you can get the same one here. So what you can do is you can just go into your settings, and then from your settings, you'll just go into plugins. And once you're in plugins, you'll just search for the marketplace for Snyk, and you'll find the Snyk vulnerability scanner. All you have to do is install it, and you're good to go. Another thing that you'll need is an API key, and you can get an API key by signing up for Snyk for free. All you need is like a Gmail, a Docker Hub ID, a GitHub account, and I believe a Bitbucket ID. And if you have one of those, you should be able to log in without a problem. We use OAuth for everything. So now that I have that extension installed, I have a package.json here. So I have my dependencies listed out right here, as well as a package.lock.json. These are all the dependencies that have been installed into my environment. So if I want to go ahead and run a scan from here, I have a couple of options. So I can go ahead and do open source vulnerabilities to see what sort of vulnerabilities exist in my open source packages that I'm using. I can look at security issues, so I can run a static application software testing or static analysis on there, as well as quality issues. I can see what are some areas in my code that can use a little bit more help. So I can go ahead and hit run. And I've already put in my API key and everything in here, so that's why this is going to work. But as you can see, I'm able to get results very, very quickly, and they're all within the IDE here. So if I look at this ADM zip thing right here, for example, some of the information I'm able to get, as in, what is the vulnerability? What is the CVE, CVSS? And where does this vulnerability, where is this vulnerability introduced, as well as where is this vulnerability fixed? So for Snyk, what we're trying to do is we want to make sure that there is a shortest path to upgrade to remediate a particular vulnerability. So for example, you're noticing that we're not going like a major version, or like we're not going to the latest version of ADM zip. We're just going to a minor version up. So from 0.47 to 0.52. In 0.52, that's where this vulnerability has been remediated. This vulnerability is no longer found in that particular version. So what we want to do is tell developers, hey, let's go ahead and fix this. And so, and to fix it, you just need to upgrade to that particular version. And you'll see that if I keep going down here, this particular vulnerability is fixed in 0.4.11. This other one is going to be fixed in 6.12.3. It's a different library. And then it kind of goes down the line here. And I can also filter out. So if I just care about my high vulnerabilities, I can do that by clicking off the M and L. But if I want to see everything, I can do that. Then if I want to look at my security issues here, for example, I have a SQL injection on line 39. So this is going to be from the static analysis piece, not the open source security piece. And so if I go ahead and double click here, it'll take me to that particular line. So saying on line 39 right here, there's a SQL injection. And so a potential SQL injection. So we're seeing that here we're just getting the username and password directly from the body. So whenever someone posts something to us, we're looking for any key that is for username and password. And we're just accepting it for what it is, right? We're not doing any sort of sanitization. We're not doing any sort of validation of these types of things. We're just directly running this against our database. So, that's a problem, right? We don't necessarily want that to happen. So what I can look at right here, it's telling us that here's the data flow in 2 steps. If you look at line 38, we're doing a console log of the request body to see what is in there. And then line 39, we're seeing that there is a username and password are being passed into the user.find method, which is going to go ahead and actually run a query against our database. Down here, what I can see is that we have a way to some suggestions on how to fix these particular vulnerabilities. And this is what we call remediation inspiration. We call it that because it rhymes. So the idea is that instead of having you leave the IDE and go into Stack Overflow or trying to figure out like a solution to this particular issue, the idea is to just provide you that information in here, or at least provide your developers this information. So this way they'll be able to get some ideas from these particular suggestions, and then they can go ahead and implement it right here in their IDE. It's just a way to help developers work a little more quickly to remediate these types of issues in their code base. And then if I go up into code quality issues, like for example, we're just kind of showing you like this is where code can be done a little bit better, a little bit differently. Not necessarily a security issue, but it's more like, this could be written in a different way to be more effective, or written in a different way to be less problematic. And so for here, for example, we're using regular expressions, and we're saying that we can improve it to handle new lines, for example, in this case. These are things that you can ignore for the most part. If you don't think this is very useful, you can even take that off so you don't, in subsequent scans, you don't have to see them. But it's just a kind of a nice thing for you. So for the code security, if you're running like a Java project, a JavaScript project, or a Python project, we're able to support that. But if you're doing like Ruby, or you're doing like Go or Rust, and Perl, COBOL, for Christ's sake, and whoop, my mouse just ran out of batteries. That's nice. There we go. So you can go ahead and for any other languages besides those 3, Java, JavaScript, and Python, you'll have support for it. But for any other language, we don't have support right now. But for open source security, we're able to support a larger set of languages, from Java, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, Go, as well as Kotlin, Objective-C, Swift, goodness, .NET, so C Sharp, F Sharp, those types of languages. It runs the gamut. So whatever your developers are working with, or whatever you're working with in your personal projects, there's a high likelihood that we're able to support from open source security perspective. Cool. I'm not hearing any questions yet. So do you all have any questions so far, or anything that you'd like want to talk about?
I will have something a little higher level, but I'm going to save it till the end because you might go over it.
Okay, that's fair.
I've got a quick one for you, if you don't mind.
Please.
Just to clarify my understanding, the open source security tab there, that's looking for vulnerabilities and open source packages, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then the one below it, the code security, that's at the actual code level.
That's correct.
So at me as a developer, if I'm, creating that, that function up there, if I'm not implementing any kind of cleansing or any kind of checks in my code, you're able to detect that?
That's right. Yeah, because we're focused on the data flow. So we're seeing the data flow coming in as a source, and then wherever the data exits the application. So that's what we call the sink.
Oh, okay, that's cool. And sorry, did you touch on code quality? I think
Yeah, I did. Right over here. So for example, index, I looked at this regular expression one.
I see. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Just clarifying.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for your question. Get that man a t-shirt. So if you're wondering as well what sort of font that I'm using, this is called Comic Mono. It's the Comic Sans of Monospace. I hope you enjoy it. If you don't, that's good. It's really like a trollish kind of font face here. But moving on. So we looked at what we have in our IDE, right? So we're able to run scans within our IDE. We're able to get information within our IDE. So let's kind of switch over into our terminal here and see like what kind of experience that's going to look like. So I'm using Windows and I'm able to install Snyk over scope, or I can install Snyk from the binary, or you can install Snyk from npm. I'm using npm just because it's a little bit easier to manage the versions. Scoop is pretty good too. I don't necessarily recommend downloading the binary unless you're doing like a containerized version of it, or if like you just need something ephemeral, then you can just have the binary there, use it, and then get rid of it. But you'll have to like pull the binary every single time. Whereas with this, I just can upgrade it and make it easier for myself with npm. So if I want just to run like a quick test on my open source dependencies, I can just run a Snyk test. And it's going to go ahead and take my manifest. It's going to get that entire dependency tree. It's going to send that dependency tree over to Snyk. We're going to compare that over to a vulnerability database, and we're going to respond with some data. And I can output this in JSON if I want to. And we also have another tool called Snyk to HTML that can take that JSON object and then put it in like a pretty report in HTML. But what you're seeing here, if I just scroll all the way up, that we found 70 issues and 309 vulnerable paths. And so you can see here that if I upgrade ADM zip from 047 to 052, I can take care of these two vulnerabilities. Or if I upgrade EGS1 to EGS316, I can fix these 4 vulnerabilities. It's just another way to be able to look at this type of data. So you can see in your IDE here, it kind of it collapses all the vulnerabilities to a particular fix. And so if you just change your package.json and upgrade these dependencies, you can take care of a lot of different vulnerabilities here. So for example, upgrading from Express 412 to Express 416 takes care of 6 vulnerabilities, 3 of them are high. So that's a pretty big bang for your buck, if you will. Now, let's say, for example, I want to interface with the Snyk UI. So my developers, they're working on here, they're building out their code, they're doing some scans on their own, some self-assessments. But let's say, for example, the security team wants to be able to know a particular artifact, right? They want to know what is the state of the application at a particular point in time. So if I run Snyk monitor, instead of putting all the output in this view here, I can just go ahead and actually push this over to Snyk itself. So what it's doing the same thing. It's running a Snyk test, and then it's collecting that output, and then it's going to send that output to Snyk for storage. And what Snyk will do is it's going to monitor that dependency tree, and it's going to let you know if there's any new vulnerabilities that have been discovered based on the dependency tree that you've uploaded at a particular point in time. So it's like a snapshot of your open source dependencies, and then what vulnerabilities exist for that, and then what new vulnerabilities come out in the future that we'll be able to let you know about that. So I don't want to leave the IDE just yet, but I just want to make sure I ran Snyk monitor, so that way we have that in Snyk. I do want to showcase how to make this available in GitHub Actions, and that's something that's going to be available here. So if I come over here to my GitHub and workflows folder, what you're seeing here is just a very simple configuration on how I can get this to run in GitHub Actions. So one of the first things I need to do is make sure that I have a Snyk token, essentially my API key, as a secret within my repository. And then essentially I'm saying for any push or any pull request into master, I want to be able to run these jobs. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the environment. So I'm just going to run an npm install and just run the, make sure I have all my dependencies installed. And then I want to go ahead and do a check for Snyk. And so what I'm doing here is once this thing runs, and I'm going to go ahead and run Snyk against it. So I'm running Snyk actions node at master. And I can also share with you the repository where we have other types of actions you can use that we've already built for you. So you just have to use this particular one here, and we'll go ahead and run it for you. Then I also have an argument here. And what this argument is, it's going to allow me to post this out into a serif format. And the serif format is what GitHub security uses for their results and output in this GitHub security tab in GitHub. So if there's an error, I want to go ahead and continue on that error. So an error essentially means if we exit code with anything other than a 0, that will be an error. And that essentially means that if Snyk exit codes 0, there's no vulnerabilities found. If it exit codes 1, then there are vulnerabilities discovered. You can also set a severity threshold. So if I only want this to exit code 1, if I identify high-level vulnerabilities, then I can set that severity threshold as another argument here, for example. The next step that I'm doing is, now that I have the snyk.serif file, I want to go ahead and upload that to GitHub code scanning. And it's going to go ahead and use that particular action, and it's going to get the serif file from there. So now not only am I able to get Snyk data from the standard output within the CI/CD, I can also send that output in the serif format to GitHub security. The last thing I'm going to do is what I had just shown you earlier, which is the Snyk monitor. And I'm specifying what organization I want to send that to. An organization is essentially just a way to segregate users as well as integrations and projects. And so my main organization is the one where I'm pushing all the data to. And so here, that's what I'm running. I'm just running the monitor command, and I'm using the org main. And that's really it. It's pretty simple. I'm doing like 4 different steps. One of them is just setup. One of them is running the test. One of them is uploading results, and the other one's uploading results to Snyk. Any sort of questions about the GitHub Actions configuration here? Okay, I will move forward then. So let me go ahead and make a change. So let's see. I'm just going to change something in here. You know, whatever. I just want to have a change so I can go ahead and add it. So let's go ahead and add this. What do I call this? All right, so now that I push that over to GitHub, let's go ahead and stop sharing here, and let's go into our browser. Hold on. There we go. All right, so I'm in my Snyk interface here. And one of the things I see here is this guy, and this was tested about 5 minutes ago. And so right here, this little icon, that's going to refer to the terminal, like anything from our CLI. So something from the CI/CD or something from my host machine. That's what we're going to see here. Now, if I go over to my actions, oh, that's the wrong actions. I want this one. So here's the repository, and it's actually running that test just for the lulls. So if I click into this and look at my build here, now we're running the Snyk job to check for vulnerabilities. So we'll let that run and go. And so what you'll notice is like a lot of the output here is going to be similar to what we saw in the Snyk test on the terminal, right? The one that I just did. So for example, upgrading ADM zip, let me make this a little bit bigger, to a particular version to fix these two vulnerabilities, etc. And then once I go down here, upload result to GitHub code scanning, go ahead and went ahead and found that file and upload the results. And now it's doing a Snyk monitor. And once that step is done, I'll be able to see the latest results in the Snyk interface over here. There we go. It's getting there. Yep. Cool. So all that's done. Now what I can go ahead and look at my security tab here in GitHub. I'll look at code scanning alerts, and I can see that there is a bunch of different alerts that we see here. So there is a prototype override bypassing QS. It tells me that there is, it just kind of gives me this information that I'm getting here. So this is all from our code scanning and the Serif output. That's what we're putting in here. Let's see, I want something better than that though. It's like a negotiator. Okay, interesting. Here we go. Yep, so the remediation here is upgrade negotiator version 0.611 or higher. So if developers are using GitHub security and they want to get a better idea of what needs to be done, all that information is going to be available here, and it's all being driven from Snyk. Now let's go back into the Snyk interface here. Let me just refresh the page. And here, tested a minute ago. So if I look at Goof over here, so this is the project. It came from the the continuous integration or our command line interface. And a couple of things that I can see here right off the bat. So first and foremost, I can see that one, we have 70 issues. If I look at my dependency tab here, it says we have 552 dependencies, but really I only have like maybe 30 or 40 dependencies kind of labeled out. So if I kind of like open these out, I can see like, oh, we're also scanning the transient dependencies, obviously, right? That's pretty important. So that's that negotiator particular vulnerability that we found earlier. We found it right there as well. We identified it. So this kind of gives me an idea of where the vulnerabilities are within my bill of materials or all the dependencies that I'm using and what dependencies they have. If I click on remediation, for example, I can look at all the upgradable ones that will fix a lot of different issues. So we saw earlier, like this express one, like those 6, the 3 lows and the 3 highs and the CLI. This is the same thing that we're able to see here as well. Just kind of lets us know like what's the biggest bang for our buck here. And then if I just look at my vulnerabilities as well as my high vulnerabilities here, I can see that we also have this score here. And what that priority score essentially is meant to be, it's meant to show, it's meant to give us an idea of how we prioritize this, from a ranking of 0 to 1,000. And the idea is to take different metrics, such as if there's an exploit available, the CVSS score, if there's a fix available, among other types of metrics, and then put that into something that will generate a score to help us figure out what are the things we should take care of first versus what are things that we can leave for a little bit later. And for anything that does have an exploit maturity of mature, that essentially means that there is code available for someone to exploit this, widely available to exploit this particular vulnerability. And so from that perspective, that's a lot more dangerous, and it also increases the probability of this vulnerability to be exploited. Whereas if something is a proof of concept or there's no exploit available, proof of concept means there's a theoretical way to exploit it, but there's not any sort of code that's widely available for you to exploit it. And over here, we're able to see this very similar things. We're able to see that, that's the introduction of the vuln, and then here's how you fix it. You can also create a Jira issue. So you can push this this particular card, put it in Jira, assign it to the particular developer, and then they'll be able to work from there. And all this information, including the remediation, will be there as well. But one of the things that's really useful from this perspective is, instead of having to pull this from my CLI, what if I just pull this directly from my repository? So if I come back into my projects here, and this is what James was talking about a little bit earlier, like in terms of fixed pull requests and automatic pull requests. So if I look at my repository here, I have more information here. So I have a Docker file here, I have a package.json. This is all coming directly from GitHub. And if I want to pull any other projects, I can just go add project, go to GitHub. And then what I can do is I can see all the projects that I have from GitHub that I can import into Snyk. So for example, if I want to do, let's see. Oh, we got a question, I believe. Oh, thanks, Brian. Thanks for being here. Let's say I want, let's just say Elixir, right? I want to add an Elixir project. So all I have to do is choose which one, add it, and it's going to go ahead and upload it to Snyk. Snyk is going to do a git clone, look for a particular repository file, a manifest file, and it's going to scan it, and we'll have results here. So that's how this guy got here. Yep, and so now I have, let's see, where's that Elixir project? So if I view project here, cool. So in this Elixir project, we did find a package.json, so they're probably doing some front-end work there as well. Excellent. So let's go into the Snyk goof here. So this is the same project that I have on my host machine. This is just something that's in GitHub, same vulnerabilities and everything else. But the thing that's going to be different is fixing these vulnerabilities. So I can manually fix these if I want to, right? So I can click this. And what then we mean by fixing the vulnerability means that we will go ahead and push a pull request to the repository, and we will go ahead and upgrade that particular dependency. So any developers that are going to be rebasing or pulling from master, they'll be able to get the latest version of that manifest file and then upgrade from there. I think there was a question though. So is this what you're showing right now, just a one-time thing, as opposed to GitHub Actions at every merge PR? And Ismet, can you clarify that question a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, so like when you imported a repo or cloned it into the UI, so that's just you do it one time and then you can just control it, like do the PRs and stuff like that, and then scan as you will, or is there some kind of thing where you can do it at regular intervals or set things up? I mean, obviously it's different than the GitHub Actions.
Yeah, so importing a project essentially means that it allows us to get access to that repository. And because we have access to it, that means that we can go ahead and run a check every 24 hours. So it's essentially, we're just monitoring that repository over a longer period of time. And so if there are changes made to that repository at the main or master branch, we'll be able to find those changes from this monitoring perspective. Because once we rescan it, we're going to pull the diff, essentially, see what's new, scan on the what's that new, and then update the issues from there. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. So it's like event driven on a GitHub Actions versus on a regular interval, like time driven.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
All right, cool. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and upgrade this particular, or address that vulnerability that we saw earlier. I can also select other ones if I want to, but just to keep it simple, I just want to have one here. So let's scroll down and click on Open a Fix PR. And so this is something that's on demand, but What we can do in the background is if we see that there are issues in your like your older repositories, anything that you have integrated from GitHub or another type of SCM, so like Azure Repos, Bitbucket, GitLab, etc., we can go ahead and create automatic pull requests. So if there is a problem that we identify and there's a upgrade path available, we'll go ahead and submit that PR on your behalf. And then it's just up to you all to go ahead and to merge that into your code base. But this is what this will look like. So what you'll see here is that we see like a table that shows us like what are the vulnerabilities that we are, or what are the upgrades we're going to be doing and what issues they're addressing, as well as is this going to be introducing a breaking change, yes or no. And so I can talk a little bit more about that once I show you the package.json, but we also have the exploit maturity here. Another thing I wanted to pull in just really quick, obviously we have a build happening here. So the build is actually going to do the check. But here I also have two checks from Snyk themselves. So we're using webhooks to integrate into your source control repository to see, to make sure that anything that you're introducing into this branch is not going to be adding additional vulnerabilities or additional license issues. That's what the security and the license check are going to do. So if it's checked out, that means that there are no new license issues and there are no new security issues in place. But if it fails, it's just letting you know that, hey, there's new vulnerabilities that are known within the changes that you are producing here. And right here, it's also doing a code scanning piece from Snyk code. So this is something that is going to look at any sort of changes from the old version to the new version that you want to push in. And are there any sort of code vulnerabilities that you need to be know about? That's also available here. If I look at my files changed, so we're looking at semantic versioning, right? So major, minor, and hotfix versions. So we will say if something is a breaking change, if we do see a major change. So for example, if this were to go to 0.47 to 1.30, that would be a major change. And that could introduce breaking changes into your code base. We can't test that on our own because we're a security informational tool. We're not like a runtime tool or a software testing tool for, software testing, not software security testing. So it's best that you obviously have some sort of runtime or some sort of build to make sure that these changes aren't going to break them. But in this case, since this is a minor version upgrade, or rather a hotfix version upgrade, this isn't going to be breaking change. But we at least want to make sure that you all are aware that there is a potential breaking change for your code base moving forward. And so if everything is fine the way I want them to, all my checks pass, I can go ahead and merge this particular pull request and go ahead and move on with my day. Cool. So if I come back into my code base over here and I look at my package.json, I should see 8am zip at 0411. So again, like that was an on-demand type of PR, but again, we can also go ahead and do this automatically. So all you have to do is accept the pull request or refuse the pull request or do whatever it is that you want to do with that PR, but it's all available for you and it all happens automatically. Cool. So we've covered a lot of bases here, right? We've talked about a lot of different things. So the first thing we did was we looked in the IDE, we looked at the integration with the IDE and how we did static analysis as well as open source scanning and code quality. And then we also looked at GitHub Actions and we looked at how Snyk can be used as a part of the CI/CD within GitHub Actions and the different parts of it. Like we built it, or we installed the dependencies, we ran the test, uploaded the results to GitHub security, and then uploaded the results also to Snyk for us to monitor that snapshot. Then we went ahead and we went into Snyk and looked at what this looks like from a DevOps perspective or security person perspective, because more than likely they're going to be the ones who are going to be working with this particular platform. And we looked at it from an integration perspective from CLI and CI/CD, as well as from an SCM integration. Then we also looked at, what are the cards look like? What is the information that we're able to provide you? What is this all going to look like? And then also how to do a fixed PR and a button for creating a Jira issue. I do want to conclude though, to kind of inform you all on the different types of integrations that we have. So we do support like on-prem deployments of resources, and we do support a lot like container registries. We support Kubernetes as not necessarily an operator, but essentially we are just monitoring what containers are being used by your pods in Kubernetes, and then letting you know what sort of vulnerabilities exist for the images in those pods, or the images being used in the pods. Of course, different types of CI/CD, IAC as well. So we support Terraform for GCP, Azure, and AWS. And we also support Kubernetes configuration and Helm charts. IDE plugins we talked about earlier. If you have like your own private package dependencies, repositories, we support that as well. Serverless functions, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of different things that we can connect to send data to pull data or pull code or dependency trees, and to provide you with some interesting results. And the whole idea, of course, is to make sure that we are building our tool to fit into security, or rather to fit in developer tooling. So developers are more likely to actually use this and then make a certain action on the data that they're getting. Obviously, developers are pretty, I don't want to say stalwart, but they are strict in terms of what tools that they want to use. So if you tell a Vim developer, a person who develops on Vim, to go ahead and use VS Code, the first thing they're going to do is install Vim bindings in VS Code and start using it that way. So what we want to do is say, like, we respect your choices. Here are some things that we can do to connect into some stuff that you're already working with. And, if you want to be able to make it easier to reduce the amount of vulnerabilities and exploitable weaknesses that end up getting into production, this is a way that you can do it. And that's what we're all about. We're here to provide it and making it really easy for security to be shifting left. Any sort of questions? And I think the last thing I should talk about is, how do you sign up for Snyk and how do you start using this for free?
I do have some questions about this,
ahead, Casey.
but we can go through the sign up part first. I don't mind.
Okay, let me just go through this really quickly because I want to
Sure.
get to your question, Casey. So really, all you have to do is go to Snyk and sign up. And so you can use Gmail, your GitHub ID, Bitbucket, or Docker ID. SSO and Azure ID is more of an enterprise thing. So as a free user, you wouldn't be able to access this. Of course, OAuth is essentially or some sort of federation login. So Docker ID, Bitbucket, GitHub, or Gmail, just use that and you're good to go. If you use like GitHub or Bitbucket or Docker ID, that will automatically set that integration for you. So if you're using Docker ID, we'll have access to your images in Docker Hub. And if you're using Bitbucket or GitHub, we'll have automatic access to those repositories that you have there. And so that way you can just immediately start importing projects into Snyk and start working from there. And then once you have that account, what you'll do, let me just log in here, is go to your general settings, and you have your API token here. This is what's going to allow you to use the IDE integrations as well as the CLI. So if you install the CLI over NPM, you do Snyk auth and then your API key, and then you're authenticated and you're ready to go. So it's pretty simple. No need to remember passwords or anything like that. So let's get to your question, Casey.
Cool. I'm actually working with a client right now that's evaluating Snyk. And one of the things that they're kind of wanting to do is, obviously this is very open-ended, but they want to automate as much of their entire software development lifecycle as possible. So I'm interested in the integration, specifically Jira integrations. Now I'm assuming, okay, you can have it automatically put test results and how many vulnerabilities might be on a specific repo attached to a ticket. That's my assumption about the Jira integration. If there's more to that, I'd love to hear about that. But I also wanted to know if you have any examples of interesting uses of the Snyk API in an automation perspective. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So let's start with the Jira bit, right? So I already have that configured in my Node.js here. And so let's go in my package.json. Let's go ahead and create Jira issue here. So I have like 3 different things here. None of them are related to this particular project, but I'm just going to pick one here. And it's going to go ahead and pull in any sort of custom fields that I have for that particular project. I can set like what type of issue it is, add a user. So we're just fetching this data directly from Jira, your instance. And so you'll notice that a lot of the information here is also going to be available, what you see in the Snyk UI. And also it's going to have the remediation advice too. And then you can also specify, hey, is this important? Is this not? Then once you create that issue, it's going to post it over to Jira. Let me see if I can get access to my Jira, because I always forget what my username and password are. Maybe I didn't use a username and password for this. Oh boy. All right, hold on. Pause sharing.
And if you can't get into it, that's no big deal. The fields that it was pulling from Jira were enough to kind of at least tell me, okay, this is probably going to do what I was hoping that it would do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here's that ticket that we just pushed in from Snyk, and now it's here in Jira.
Cool. So it can open Jira tickets based on results, which is excellent. Can it also comment on existing issues?
Like existing issues that you've pushed from Snyk to Jira, or are you saying that
an existing Jira issue, sorry, not a security issue. Like if I had a Jira ticket open for the story that I was working on, and then Snyk came back and said, hey, there's all these problems with the code that's in the repository, right? Is there a way for it to add comments to that existing Jira ticket, or does it always have to open a new ticket?
It would open a new ticket.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have that mature of a, in terms of like that particular use case, right? It's not that mature yet, but that's an interesting use case. I'd have to take that to product team and see what they can do with it.
Okay. I mean, I'm seeing here it would be possible to link the issues together. So I imagine with the Jira API that could potentially be automated as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So that answered the big one about Jira for me.
Then
as far as the Snyk API itself, yeah, sorry.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you what your other question was, just to remind me. So the interesting things that people have done with the Snyk API, we have like really, really big customers. And so what they do is, instead of like the action that I took, like I went into my GitHub and I selected one repository and then added to it, or I can select multiple ones. But what if you have like 1,000 different repositories? That's where the API really comes in. So we have a way to do that. So you can create projects. So let's see, retrieve, update, list all projects, project issues, integrations, organizations, create an organization. Let's see. There's like a lot of different things you can do with this.
I can easily make this a shorter answer, which is, would I have access to this documentation with a free account?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to put this in the chat so you can go ahead and take a look at that, because there's a lot of information there. There you go.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Actually, I had another interesting use case, is that one of my new customers, what they're trying to do is they want to know what is the dates of the release of a particular version for a library that they're using, because they want to be able to track the age of the libraries that they're using. And so they're using our API just to do that. So any time that they have any project uploaded, they go ahead and just pull that information, parse it, and now they have a record of when that particular library was released. And also they can keep track on how old it is. So that was kind of an interesting thing, an interesting data point for them. Cool. What other questions do you all have?
So I
Give
did have
everyone else a chance.
What's it? You had another question, Casey?
No, I was just gonna say I'll give everyone else a chance because mine are not gonna be cool technical questions. They're gonna be boring consulting questions.
Yeah, so I got a couple questions too. My first one is, as a vulnerability is discovered, how long does it take Snyk to get that into its scanning profiles and be able to scan code?
Yeah, less than a day on average for us. And we try, so some of the statistics that I've received from some of the my coworkers is that, like, if you were to look at NPM audit, for example, it takes them about 30 to 40 days longer than Snyk in order to get vulnerability data into their database and then out to other users. So for us, as soon as we find something, we go ahead and verify it, and then we have a whole process around that, and then we go ahead and add that into our database. We make multiple updates to our database per day to make sure that people make sure our customers and any of the free users are aware of any sort of vulnerabilities that exist for any of their projects that we're working on.
Okay. Second question, can you go into the recommendation engine for what version to fix it to?
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming it's not always just the latest, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
probably, like, can you just dive into the recommendation engine a little bit more? Is it based on popularity, or is it just when it's fixed in, or?
It's when it's fixed in, right?
Okay.
So when that vulnerability is addressed. So in this case, it's just a hotfix version right here. So from 024 to 025. So that's the least, the shortest upgrade path available. So that's what we try to do with this, because we don't want to introduce breaking changes to people's code bases. But if you look at the remediation here, for example, like, this is a huge change, like 1.0 to 3.16. But this also takes care of a high level vulnerability as well as 3 medium level vulnerabilities that we are aware of. So something like this, although it can be painful if a lot of the code base is using this type of library, it's safer to go ahead and upgrade to this version and then make changes to the code base afterwards. Because once you run your tests, you'll be able to see what works and what doesn't work. As long as you have tests. Not all developers write tests, and they don't always write good tests either, myself included. I don't write tests until it's too late.
I've never seen that happen before with developers
Where they
writing
write
poor
tests?
or late tests. Sorry, I was just being sarcastic.
All my engineers write the test first, and then their code.
Yes, we're extremely left shifted.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's living the dream, though. That's like test-driven development right there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then just one last question I think I had was, I was working on a Terraform/Python project that had both Terraform and Python in it, and I noticed it picked up the Terraform because lately if I've noticed any of my GitHub projects or public GitHub projects don't have Snyk scanning, I just go ahead and add it because it takes like half a second for me to get that going, because I integrated it using the GitHub authentication method.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just a click and it's pretty much added automatically. So it made it super simple. And I noticed it added the Terraform pretty easily, but I didn't see it pick up the Python script, and I wasn't sure why it didn't do that. I didn't really look too deep into it. At the time, I was just noticing, like, hey, I thought it should have picked up the Python script too. I noticed it picked up the Terraform, which was great. Any insight onto why it might pick up one and, like, in some cases pick up Python, in some cases not?
Yeah. Do you have a requirements.txt in there, or like what sort of Python package manager are you using? Pip, pipenv, Poetry? Which one are you using? Or are you using like open source dependencies at all with that Python script?
No, I haven't used any open source dependencies at all. So maybe that's why it hasn't picked up anything, because I figured just the extension would have probably caught it. But you're saying basically if I'm not starting to use a dependency yet, that it's probably not going to pick it up.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then if you want to be able to look at that Python file from a static code analysis perspective, what you'd want to do is you'd want to go into settings here. And let's see, let's go to project. Let's say, for example, any of these should work. There will be like a Snyk code option here. I don't have it turned on for this organization right now, but for the free version, like anyone will have access to Snyk code, and that's our SAST. You just go over here and you just turn it on, and now anytime that and you re-import the project, anytime that we see it, once we notify there's a Python script there, we'll go ahead and look at that Python script and let you know if there's any sort of code issues there.
Okay. And then I did have one last one, and I think I know the answer, and I just kind of want to restate it just to make sure I got it. You know, there's projects out there that we don't work on all that frequently. So sometimes we don't check it in and have the actions do a daily scan. So they can sit out there, you know, for maybe 3 months at a time if they're not very active projects. And say a vulnerability comes in and you put the fix out there in a day. I'm assuming the nightly job that you said would run would automatically pick that up and then send out an email notification or some kind of notification based on your preferences within Snyk.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I thought I heard. I just wanted to verify.
Yeah, we can have it set to test daily or test weekly, whichever you prefer.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. Anybody else?
Oh, thanks for being here, Robert. I'm not sure if he's still here, but he said this was awesome. So thank you, Robert. Thank you for being here.
This is awesome. Thank you, Omar.
Yeah, there's one more thing I want to show you. This is actually my favorite thing that Snyk does, and it is completely for free. There's like no paid plan for anything like this at all. It is what we call snyk.io/advisor. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That's the fun of live television.
This right here is Snyk Advisor. So I really like using this because if I want to use a particular package and I want to know more about its ecosystem. So let's say, for example, I'm interested in something in Python and I want to look at Snyk, right? I want to see what is the health and the status of Snyk. So I'll click on here. And so what I'm able to see are, you know, the package health, the popularity, the security, if there's any sort of security issues here, you know, what the community is like, where the website is, anything like that. And also if there is like a malicious package that is like Snyk, or it's like spelled like Snyk, you know, am I installing a package that's known to be malicious? With Snyk Advisor, we'll be able to let you know about that. So this is free. There's like, you don't need to pay for this at all. It's just completely open for the community to use. It is a fantastic tool, and I use it anytime that I want to know any sort of open source dependency that I want to import into my project. So this, I hope it's useful for you all. It's a really cool tool. It supports right now NPM, Python, or rather Node.js, Python, and also some Docker images too. So check it out if you ever like to.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see some of this information come through into the IDE plugins you guys have. So as it finds a vulnerability that, you know, kind of gives you some breadcrumbs into some of these, some of this information right there, so you wouldn't have to necessarily come out here. But this is great stuff. So.
Yeah, totally.
It does give those breadcrumbs through the, what was it? You showed the tab, right? Okay. I just want to make sure. So from my understanding regarding Python, it's not that Snyk doesn't support Python at all. It's that if I had just a bunch of .py files, it's not really going to do anything with those. But if I had an actual Python project, just like if I had a Node project that's set up with dependencies and the appropriate files, I don't know what the Python terminology is compared to, you know, like a package.json. But if I had that for Python, it would work. And be treated in the same fashion, correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we support.
We're good till 6, right?
So we can definitely stay on to 6. I think technically we like to keep it to an hour. So I think we're in kind of the question and answer section. So what I can do is I can kind of stop the recording, and then we can just go into like a free open question answer, you know, if some people aren't necessarily want to be recorded while they ask their question, etc., which is probably a good thing to do. But I did want to thank you, Omar, for coming on and doing this. We really appreciate it. This is really great stuff. I've been, like I said, connecting up all my open source projects up to this stuff, and it's really given me some interesting results. And the fact that it's doing some of this automatic stuff for me and making my life a lot easier has been very helpful.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for being a great audience. It's been wonderful, and I enjoyed talking with y'all. And I hope to continue this after the recording.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and stop.